Hello dear students, let's start this worksheet number 43 for the date 12th October 2020, class 9 science, and this is our first worksheet for this week and last worksheet for this chapter, force and laws of motion. So we are doing the revision of this chapter. Jigyasa Didi has asked, Gyan, what have you learned so far about the force and laws of motion? So Gyan has summarized this chapter, okay, in this worksheet. So let's start. Jigyasa Didi, I have learned many things about force and laws of motion. So what is force? The pull or push is called the force, okay. And what is the unit of force? The unit of force is kilogram meter per second square, or we can say that Newton. If we have to define 1 Newton, अगर हमें 1 Newton को define करना है, so we will write that 1 unit of force is defined as the amount that produces an acceleration of 1 meter per second square in an object of 1 kilogram mass. So 1 kilogram mass के लिए जो acceleration चाहिए 1 meter per second square, that is called 1 Newton. Okay. So we have studied that force is of two types, balanced force and unbalanced force. Balanced force, an example is given here, then the resultant force is 0. In case of unbalanced forces, the resultant force is greater than 0. So we have discussed about the tug of war game in the first worksheet, and this is the resultant force. Now resultant force is greater than 0 in this case. Now the laws of motion, force and the laws of motion, how are they connected? Newton's law of motion we have to study for this. So first law of Newton says that any object remains in the state of rest or in uniform motion along a straight line unless compelled to change that state or by an applied force. So we need an applied force. So this is we can say that it's inertia tendency to resist the change, okay, or we can say that mass, that is the measurement of inertia. Second law of motion says the rate of change of momentum of an object is proportional to applied unbalanced force in the direction of force. So we can say that momentum is mass into velocity and its unit is kilogram meter per second square, and we find force like this, mass into acceleration. Now the third law says that to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, and they act on two different bodies. So now what is the law of conservation of momentum? We have discussed in the last worksheet that the before collision and after collision, the total momentum of the system remains same, remains constant. So it is called conserved. This is the law of conservation of momentum. If you have not studied it, so see the video of the last worksheet also, you will get it clear. Now come to the questions. There are 5 questions. First is define 1 Newton force. So we can define 1 Newton force from here, from this box. 1 Newton, 1 unit of force is defined as the amount that produces an acceleration of 1 meter per second square in an object of 1 kilogram mass. What is the SI unit of momentum and force? So at SI unit of momentum is kilogram meter per second square, and the SI unit of force is 1 kilogram meter per second square. This is the, or we can say that it is Newton, SI unit. So state 3 laws of motion. So this is a summary worksheet. We can write easily from this worksheet itself. First law of motion, and this is second law of motion, and this is third law of motion. From the boxes you can write 2 applications of second law of motion. 2 applications बतानी है. Here these are given. If a man is pushing a mass of 400 kilogram, then it is difficult for him to push the sphere, okay. And if it is low in mass, that is 40 kilogram, so it is very easy to push it, okay. So there is an example of a cricket ball. The cricketer has to catch this ball with a force, okay. So it cannot be hurted if the bowler pushes his hands, lowers his hands, okay. So the force applied by the ball will be less. Now the next question is define inertia. So inertia is the tendency of any object to resist the change. That is we have studied in the first law of motion. So you can write it from here. This is your worksheet, and that's all for today. Submit this worksheet after doing this and make notes also from this worksheet. Thank you for watching.